Hello students, welcome to a workshop that will give you 6 editing tips that will bring you much closer to a more polished and proofread final draft of a college essay. So let's get started. I want to start by sharing with you one of my favorite definitions of editing, and it's by Toby Fulwiler, who wrote the book you see there on the screen. He says that editing is sentence level work, attended to after text ideas are in order. Editing is polishing to make the paragraphs, the sentences, and the individual words communicate carefully, accurately, and correctly with clarity, style, and grace. Now I know that's a long sentence to remember, but if you pause this screen and you read it carefully again and again, you'll see that editing is truly about looking at your sentences and your words to make sure that everything in your paper, every sentence and every word, is doing something to communicate your idea in a clear, correct way. That's why I like this definition by Toby Fulwiler. But anytime I start to talk about editing, I usually start with this optical illusion, and I usually ask you, what do you see? It's one of those pictures where you see two images in one picture. So stare at it and see if you can find the old woman, and then look at it again and see if you can find the young woman. I feel like when you do an activity like this, the mental shift you have to make to find one, the old woman, or two, the young woman, that same mental shift happens when you are trying to edit your work. After you have spent so much time writing and revising your words, you definitely need a new way to look at those same words with a new pair of eyes, similar to the mental shift you had to take when you wanted to find the old woman or the young girl when you looked at this picture. So editing requires you to use a new set of eyes, definitely. So what you need to do is find a new way to see your sentences. Because if you read your sentences from the top to the bottom, you're most likely going to gloss over some of the mistakes you might be making, like a missing word or a double word or a sentence that's not quite working. You might be fixing it in your head as you read from the beginning to the end of your essay. But if you read your final draft aloud, starting with the last sentence in your essay, then you'll start to really see what each sentence is doing in your paper. So find the beginning of your last sentence and read it out loud. See if there's anything you need to fix in that sentence to make it more clear. And when you're done with that one, go to the sentence right above it, find the beginning of that sentence and read it out loud, and see if there's anything you need to do to that sentence to make sure it's working to its full potential, to make sure that it's a complete sentence that makes sense to your readers. So editing tip number 1 is to read your final draft aloud, starting with the last sentence first. Editing tip number 2, make sure your sentences are complete, and here is where reading comes in handy again. So read your sentences aloud and listen to make sure that each one is complete. I'll give you an example. Listen to this sentence. As I was hanging around the corner, can you hear that? It's not a complete thought, right? And you can hear it with your ears. So your ears and reading out loud are the best ways to edit your work. So if you read out loud and just to make sure that each one of your sentences completes a thought, then chances are you're going to have a lot of complete sentences in your paper, and that's a good thing. Editing tip number 3. Look inside each one of your body paragraphs and choose one sentence in each body paragraph where you are using a linking verb like is or has or was. And see if you can do something to that sentence to change that linking verb into an action verb. So read your sentence again and look at the subject of your sentence and see if you can reword it so that the subject is doing something rather than using a word like is or has or was. So you don't need to change every single linking verb in your paper, but go through and see if inside each body paragraph or any paragraph in your paper, see if you can find one sentence where you can transform a linking verb into an action verb. It's a really cool way to revise your paper. Editing tip number 4, don't end sentences with commas. Again, reading out loud, see where your sentences are ending. And if at the end of your sentences you see a comma separating them, separating two sentences, put a period there instead, okay? Because commas can never ever end a sentence. If you can do this, if you can change these commas and stop them from trying to end a sentence, and you replace them with a period, you'll be amazed at how much your writing improves. So editing tip number 4, don't end sentences with commas. Editing tip number 5, make sure you use capital I when you refer to yourself in your essay. This is becoming an increasing problem in student essays because texting and other social media don't necessarily correct people when they're using lowercase I when they're referring to themselves. But in a college essay, you want to make sure you get that one right. So read your paper again, and this time hunt for any I's that are referring to yourself, just that I, and change it from a lowercase I to a capital I. And that will go a long way in making sure you have the most correct paper you can possibly have. And editing tip number 6, use MLA page format for your essay. MLA stands for Modern Language Association, and this is the style format that we use for English Comp 1. So take a look at the screen here and notice how the heading is set with your name, the instructor's name, the name of the class, and the date. And then notice how the title of the essay is centered at the top and how the page is double-spaced. So look at the screen as you're formatting your essay and make sure it's following these guidelines here. And again, this will go a long way to making sure you have a polished essay when you pass it in to your teachers. So, if you use these 6 tips for editing your essay, you will be on your way to having a very well proofread paper. So good luck editing your essay. Bye!